So delighted to be joined by Aaron from GAA Fan TV. We're going to have a look ahead to this year's All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. Aaron, we've just finished the leagues there, and most counties had 4 games each. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was great. It was brilliant to have the leagues back, obviously, after so long not having any games at all, like not having any Gaelic football or hurling. And obviously, the Premier League's great and all the rest, but we love our own game, and great to have everything back, especially the football, because like the league has been brilliant. We've seen so many entertaining games. I think Eamon Fitzmaurice had a quote there saying it was Samba football, and he's probably not right. It was almost like watching the World Cup or even the Euros themselves, like considering the amount of entertainment we got, like across all the different group stages and the drama, and just like I don't know if we're going to get as good a championship, to be honest, because I think with the league, when you have so many teams playing at a similar level, I think it's very easy for those counties to put up big performances to cause 1 or 2 surprises and shocks. But I think in the championship, there might be a few games in there where you won't really get excited for, but at the same time, if the teams get, the All-Ireland semi-finals and finals that we think will get there, I think we could have a cracking 2 very interesting semi-finals and 1 potentially brilliant All-Ireland final. So it's going to be, it's very exciting now.
Yeah, because definitely at the start of the league, you could see some teams were clearly further down the line than others. You saw Kerry hit the ground running straight away, and they've continued that on with big score lines. And maybe some teams, maybe your likes of your Donegals and Tyrones, are just trying to get up to that level now heading into championship.
Yeah, like you could definitely tell like they were trying a few different things out, and in particular Donegal, who obviously had a couple of different injuries, and Michael Murphy was obviously injured, and Oisín Gallen had an injury at one point as well, and Neil McGee's obviously injured. So definitely, I think in particular the Division 1 teams were really, because obviously there was nothing, the only thing really to play for in Division 1 was avoiding relegation, really, because with the whole situation with there not being league finals, it was not like, you could tell in the Donegal Dublin game that both teams were happy in the final 20 to 25 minutes to just let the game see out the way it was. So yeah, and in terms of Tyrone, definitely, with the change in management there and potentially trying to change their style, like they're definitely trying to kick the ball more and not play maybe as defensive as I suppose what many people perceive they would have played in the past, although they did kick high scores at times under Mickey Hart, but they definitely were a lot more defensively orientated probably back then. So yeah, you could tell definitely a couple of teams trying a few different things out, and it's going to be interesting now going into the championship to see if, in particular for the Ulster teams, to see if it pays off.
Yeah, we may as well start with Ulster because it's labelled the most competitive province, and again, probably this year is probably as wide open as it has been for a good few years. You have obviously Donegal without Michael Murphy. We don't know how close he is, or will he play a part this year. Tyrone under new management. Armagh seemed to be clicking into gear, stayed up in Division 1. And Monaghan seemed to just be getting back to maybe similar levels to what they were 2-3 years ago, staying up in the last day against Galway and performing well against, they drew with Tyrone and Donegal in the league as well. So it looks like it could be a really good province this year.
Yeah, it's going to be very entertaining. Like, to be honest with you, I think I gave a prediction on my own podcast that Armagh will end up winning it. But to be perfectly honest, I've really no idea. Like I feel like with the other provinces, like Munster and Leinster in particular, and to a certain degree Connacht, you can kind of say, all right, this is probably what will happen here.
Yeah.
But in Ulster, there's those counties you mentioned, and even Derry, who've looked impressive. Cavan are going down to Division 4, but they're still the Ulster champions, so you still kind of have to relatively take them seriously a little bit, I suppose. So yeah, it's going to be so interesting. And the fact is, like, a lot of these counties will end up playing each other at different points as well. Like, you've Tyrone against Cavan, and then going on to play Donegal. Like, there's whoever wins the Ulster championship, by the time they get to an All-Ireland semi-final against what many people would believe to be Kerry, you'd say it would be, those counties will almost be dead on their feet, because they'll have been playing such high standard, like not just Division 1 teams, but, Division 2 teams as well, and the likes of Down and Derry and possibly even Antrim, who are very much on the rise at the moment as well.
Yeah, because Donegal do have a tricky enough passage. They have Down in the preliminary rounds, then they have a resurgent Derry who are playing very well in Division 3. Again, it's hard to know with the league with Derry how good that Division 3 is. Are they up towards that high-end Division 2 standard. We just don't know yet. We'll probably find out if they do play Donegal. And then obviously Tyrone and Cavan are on that side as well. So, I mean, Donegal, and then they'd have to play Monaghan or Armagh. You'd have to imagine in the final. You'd have to think one of them would get ahead of Fermanagh and Antrim. So that's a real difficult passage for Donegal.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. I feel sorry for Derry, because I feel like if Derry were in the preliminary round, I think they'd probably have a better chance maybe of beating them than what they will have, because I think Donegal and the down game gives them time to maybe try a few different things out, try a few different players out, whatever really ever been in doubt of being beaten. I know Down are a Division 2 team and they were Ulster semi-finalists last year. I remember they beat Monaghan there, I think back in 2017. So they're a team you definitely can't sleep on, but you'd have to fancy Donegal to come through there. And yeah, it's going to be so tough for them. And that's one of the reasons why personally I don't think they will win Ulster this year, because I just think with the games and the level of teams that they're going to play, I just feel that they're going to get caught somewhere, whether it's Tyrone or Armagh and possibly even Derry. But like you said there, we can't go off anything with Derry. They haven't. The last time I think they would have played a team of this quality was maybe Donegal back in 2019 in the Ulster Championship. 2020, obviously we know what happened with the league and the championship. There was no qualifiers. They played Armagh, got beat. So yeah, for Donegal it's going to be very tough for them, and then especially with some players injured like Michael Murphy as well, it's going to be tough for them this year. But if they come through it and going into a Kerry game, you never know, because that's been the hump for Donegal, has been, can they get to that All-Ireland semi-final? So if they can do that, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, and then you have Tyrone and Cavan, two teams going on a bit of a low now. I mean, Tyrone did stay up, of course, but they were a shambles really against Kerry, conceding 6 goals for a Tyrone team, especially, that's prides itself on being tough to beat. It's really disappointing from their point of view. And Cavan have probably hit a rock bottom. It's 3 relegations in a row for them. They've gone from the huge high at the end of last year to being Division 4 now, and it's hard to see Cavan get. I mean, I wrote them off probably every game last year. I think I predicted them, apart from the Antrim game, that they'd lose. But I cannot see them beating Tyrone here, to be honest.
Yeah, and ironically enough, the Antrim game was probably their worst performance, and that probably sums up Cavan in many ways. They seem to probably only maybe step up when they play the bigger teams or the games they're not expected to win. I think they relish being an underdog, and part of me nearly wouldn't be surprised if they pulled off a shock win here or something like that, because they have quality players. We know that they do, and they definitely can push Tyrone. And Tyrone are coming in on the back of obviously a very heavy defeat to Kerry. But again, you'd have to fancy Tyrone. Surely for Cavan, that what they achieved last year and winning that Ulster title, I don't think they can do much more. And I think it's one of them things that I said it on one of my own podcasts, a bit like Liverpool when they won the league. They had that terrible run of form in the Premier League, obviously in the season gone, and in the end they got to rescue their season, so it wasn't that bad in the end. But for Cavan, I think it's similar. He won the Ulster Championship, hit the mountain, and unfortunately it's all just come crumbling back down. And I think for them it's just going to be about rebuilding in Division 4 and going again in 2022 and the championship whenever that does come around. But I do expect them to be competitive with Tyrone. They'll definitely put it up to them for about 45 to 50 minutes. But I just think with Tyrone's quality and the fact that Cavan have been so poor, you can't turn that off. You can't just go from being a poor quality team to all of a sudden beating your Tyrones and Donegals again. So yeah, you'd have to go with Tyrone.
Yeah, Tyrone are interesting. I mean, I did the stupid thing, and I kind of was right in the end. I did tip them for the league, but there was no official league winner in the end, so I kind of get away with it. But they don't seem to be just clicking at the moment. We don't know where Cathal McShane is, or he's in and around the panel, I think. I don't know where he is in terms of fitness. Conor McKenna seems to be drifting out of games as well. They can't seem to get his influence like he had maybe the end of last year. And, young lads like Dara Canavan, obviously he went off injured against Kerry. He'd be a big blow if he's out. So they're just trying things like new management would, and they're trying to hope that they might just stumble on a system and a team that hopefully, from their point of view, win an Ulster Championship.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to play more on the front foot, and you can tell that by, they're pushing up a lot more on kick-outs compared to the previous years. They're definitely adopting more of a press, kind of similar to what like Mayo and Dublin do at different times as well. So you can tell they're definitely trying to mix it up. But I do think it's about that balance, and there probably is still a lot of defensive instincts and kind of Mickey Hart instincts that are probably still there. And whether Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher are trying to coach that out of them, or whether they're trying to let them be as they are, it's a tough one with Tyrone. And I did hear that Cathal McShane might potentially be back at some point in the championship this year, which is great news from a Tyrone perspective. And maybe when he comes back into the team, that will take the focus away from Conor McKenna, and he can kind of go back to being that player that he was last year. So Tyrone are probably the team that, like, if you were to pick a team in Ulster that was to win an All-Ireland maybe in the next 5 years, you'd probably pick Tyrone. But with this year, with the fact that it's the COVID situation that's obviously happened, and there's been breaks and all the rest, and changes in management, and not enough time for the managers to be there with the players, you'd have to feel that Tyrone probably just aren't at that level yet, but they definitely probably have more potential maybe than anyone else. Although Armagh are definitely a team that's creeping up at the moment.
Yeah, we might move on to Armagh because they have Antrim in the quarter final, and again Antrim have done really well this year, going to Division 4. They probably should have done that last year. I think they conceded 7 goals to Wicklow the first game back, so they kind of blew that. So it's a great year really, regardless. They want to be competitive obviously at Antrim in this game, but they've done their job. Armagh, big expectations going into this Ulster Championship, I think, on them. There's a lot expected, especially after last year when they lost so convincingly to Donegal, and the fact they're avoiding Donegal and Tyrone until the final. They'll really have to fancy their chances this year.
Yeah, it almost feels like now or never in many ways for Armagh. Like, it feels like if they don't win it this year under Kieran McGeeney, I think Kieran McGeeney has done a great job in Armagh. Like, you have to remember they were in Division 3, I think, when he took over. Like, he's kind of laid the foundations for Armagh. I think even if he doesn't win the Ulster title, I still think you can look back at his time with Armagh as somewhat of a success. Obviously, it doesn't compare with maybe when they were winning All Ireland and Ulster titles, but I think for them the most important thing is just getting to an Ulster final. Like, they haven't been to one since 2008. As you said before, with the draw that they have, with the fact that they play Antrim and then the winner of Monaghan Fermanagh, they beat Monaghan obviously already in the league. So you'd have to fancy that surely that it's a perfect opportunity. And with there being no qualifiers as well, getting to an All-Ireland semi-final, not playing the Dubs as well, like, it's a huge opportunity for Armagh. They definitely have the players to do it, with Rian O'Neill, and Oisin O'Neill has been in phenomenal form. And if Aidan Forker comes back into the team, that's a top-class fullback you've got there as well. So it's a huge opportunity for Armagh, and you definitely fancy them to beat Antrim, with all due respect. Like, Antrim have done a tremendous job under and the McGinley, like, getting up to Division 3, and they're set up really well. And I think they won 3 of their league games by a point, and I think they were trailing in 2 of the 3 games going into the final 5 to 10 minutes. So the fact that they managed to have the bottle within them to turn around shows that they're probably over that Wicklow defeat. So yeah, Armagh, I think, definitely a team to watch. And like what I said, I feel like it's now or never really for them in this year's Ulster Championship under Kieran McGeeney.
Yeah, because the team you'd have to imagine they'll face is Monaghan, with all due respect to Fermanagh. Although Fermanagh did catch Monaghan out however many years ago it was, 3 or 4 years ago. And I said at the start, Monaghan just seems to be clicking back into gear a bit now. The last 3 games, drew 2, bet Galway, and they show great spirit against Galway to come back. And you'd have to think they'll be, on a big high after that game going to the championship.
Yeah, like, Monaghan are just they're such a tough team to call. Like, anytime you predict them to win, they lose, and anytime you predict them to lose, they win. I mean, they were basically beaten in the Galway game. I mean, there was only 5 or 6 minutes left, and there was no way that you surely felt that Monaghan were going to turn around, and somehow they did. And it's one of them ones where they seem, when they play a team bigger than them, I think, like a lot of teams in Gaelic football, I think Cavan and Tipperary are probably the same. They seem to relish that. And Fermanagh is a tricky one because, like what you said before, I remember they beat Tyrone and then lost to them in one of the Ulster games. So, like, Monaghan have been caught on the hop for the past 3 or 4 years, and like, they have brought in a lot of good new players. Like, Aaron Mulligan looks good, and I like the look of Rory Woods as well. And like, they have been impressive, and they certainly have. Like, one thing that's impressed me more with them this year compared to previous years is they look like they're playing on the front foot. They're taking it to teams, they're going at them, and they're not afraid to take risks either, which I think a lot of teams probably are. Like even seeing Rory Beckett and trying to tackle the goalkeeper. I mean, you don't see that every day. And Jack McCarron and Conor McManus hitting points, from 30, 40 yards in the last few minutes. So they're playing without fear. And I think they need to keep that, though, against the likes of your Fermanagh and even against Armagh as well, because they definitely have the quality. Like, they have the quality to win the Ulster, in my opinion. The question is, will they be able to just find a way through those games? Like, seeing out games seems to be a problem as well. Closing out games, game management. So I think that will be a big focus for them.
Yeah. So if you had to pick one, who would you be going with in Ulster?
Yeah, well, I suppose I went with Armagh already, I suppose, in one of my podcasts, so I can't really change my mind. And to be fair, I'd stick with Armagh. Like, I think it's a great year. It's a great chance for them. I think they've done all the right steps. They've had all the right preparation. Obviously beat Roscommon yourselves in a very convincing game recently, and put it up. Probably should have beat Donegal. They had that within their grasp. Probably should have even beaten Tyrone as well. So they've shown all the right strides. They haven't had that many injuries as well, which I think will help them. Like Aidan Forker's coming back into the team now potentially. Rian O'Neill, Oisin O'Neill have been tremendous. Stephen Campbell looks like he's stepped it up a level this year. So I think Armagh are definitely a team that I'd have to go for. I think it will be Donegal in the final, and I think it will just be one of them cases of Armagh catching Donegal a bit on a hop, because I think Donegal, unfortunately, when it's come to that sort of stage where they're looking to get into an All-Ireland semi-final, it just hasn't worked. And I think Donegal will probably be dead on their feet as well. Like, they'll have played an extra game than Armagh, and they'll have played probably higher quality than Armagh as well, and playing the likes of Derry and Tyrone as well. So it'll be tough for Armagh, but they haven't beaten a top level team since 2008, since they won the Ulster title. So it is quite a big prediction, but I just have a feeling that they'll be able to do it, because I definitely think they have the players to do it.
Yeah, I'd probably go Donegal if I knew Michael Murphy was fit. I think he's that important to them. I think with Michael Murphy, Donegal are the best team, and it might still be the best team even without him in Ulster. But I think he's that big of an influence on that Donegal team. So yeah, I'd probably just about side with Donegal if Murphy is there. But I think that side, actually, I think Donegal or Tyrone will actually probably end up winning it. I think just a bit more experience than the other two. But we'll move on to the Connacht Championship. It's kind of turned into a bit of a 3-team championship the last 5-6 years with Mayo, Roscommon and Galway. You'd have to think, with all due respect to Sligo and Leitrim, that Mayo should have a very comfortable passage to the final. Sligo and Leitrim, I think, if you look at the league, we're probably the two worst teams nationally, so Mayo couldn't have asked for a handier way through. But I suppose the big news for Mayo is that Killian O'Connor is injured. Diarmuid O'Connor is injured, I think, as well. He came off against Clare. Like, if they were missing them two, that they are two major blows to Mayo.
Yeah, they're like you said, they're two massive blows for Mayo, and in particular Killian O'Connor. Like, I think he's probably the bigger blowout of the two for obvious reasons. And I suppose it's, in some ways, playing Sligo and Leitrim, it's perfect in many ways, because it allows them to try out a Paul Towie, or maybe put Tommy Conroy there, maybe tweak the system. Maybe they won't be as attacking as what they have been, because obviously, normally they overlap the fullbacks and even their cornerbacks, and Oisin Mullen at times is getting forward scoring goals from fullbacks. So you do wonder, will they play a bit more defensive this year in the Connacht Championship? There's no evidence to suggest that they will, but I think they will have to make a few tweaks to their system, definitely, because if they don't have Killian O'Connor potentially by the time of Connacht final, or, well, you'd have to feel so, he probably won't. They probably won't have him. By the time the All-Ireland semis and Connacht final comes around, they're going to have some sort of a plan to, if they want to win an All-Ireland this year. They're going to have to come up with something, because Paul Towie looks like a talented player, but even in the Clare game, he missed one or two frees that Killian would normally score. And even Robert Henley came up at one stage and to kick a 45, I think, and put it wide. So that kind of shows you that they, like, without having a free kick taker, like, you'd be even worried about them for Connacht, and it's definitely not impossible that a Galway or Roscommon catches them on the hop. But I think the main thing in the Sligo and Leitrim game will certainly just be trying to test out those new players coming into the team and kind of see what they do from there.
Yeah, because I think Killian O'Connor was the one player, probably alongside maybe Paddy Durkin, that Mayo really needed badly. He's He's been on great form, and he's the talisman, he's the scorer. And you take him out of there, there's a lot of young lads there. I know they played in the All-Ireland final last year, the likes of Tommy Conroy and that, but it's a huge miss. You know, that focal point, the leader in that forward line. So yeah, like before that injuries and that, I would have had Mayo pretty much nailed down. I had clear favourites for Connacht. If Killian O'Connor is definitely out, I think it opens the door a bit. And the fact they've played Division 2 as well is interesting, because even being from Roscommon, I know playing Division 2, we've won the league twice. You go into the Connacht Championship and you're just that bit colder compared to everyone else having played them Division 1 games. So we know Mayo look convincing and put big scores in Division 2, but how good was that Division 2 that they've just played in?
Yeah, that's the thing, like, because obviously we've seen Mayo go up against the likes of your Clares and your Meads, and I know Mead obviously put out a second string team, but coming up against that level of opposition, it's definitely different to the likes of your Galways or your Dublins potentially in an All-Ireland semi-final. And I suppose, like you very well know, like the 2 times Roscommon got relegated from Division 1 recently, they went on to win Connacht. So yeah, it's a hard one to know with Mayo, because even when they made the All-Ireland final last year, like they done well in the All-Ireland final and fair play to them, but you look at the teams, you know, they played Tipperary in an All-Ireland semi-final, so it's a hard one to really judge Mayo at the moment, like especially if you're going, you know, off, you know, post-pandemic and whatnot, because, you know, they beat Galway twice, one of them very, very convincingly in the league, so it's going to be tough for Mayo, definitely, and you would fancy Galway or Roscommon could definitely put in a real shift against them, and it's not a given that Mayo win. And I think with Mayo as well, not only are they losing Killian because of his goals and his points and his frees and place balls and whatnot, but his experience as well, because there's a lot of inexperience in that team, even when you look at their full back line and the Hessian and, you know, Robert Henley's coming back into the team, even looking at their bench, there's so much inexperience there. And I think that would be the worry, is that when things get tough, maybe against the Galway or Roscommon, you know, if they're 2-3 points down going into the final 10 to 15 minutes, like, do they have the players and do they have the bottle to pull it, to change it? Because in the past they've been able to do that, but that was when you had the likes of your Killian O'Connors who were playing, or your Donny Vaughns, or guys like this, you know, Andy Moore and Alan Dillon, players like that. So it's going to be very interesting, definitely, to see if that does happen for Mayo in this year's championship. Yeah,
the other side is the Galway Roscommon semi-final, and both teams coming on in a negative way into this championship. Galway kind of contrasting losses in them relegation playoffs. Obviously, Galway had it in their grasp. They had that Division 1 status, and they kind of just blew it, really, if you look at it in the injury time. And even in extra time, they couldn't get over the line. And Roscommon are coming in a real flat way. And to be honest, from a Roscommon point of view, I haven't seen as much, I suppose, negativity and just no expectation going into a Connacht Championship, maybe for 6 or 7 years. No one really wouldn't say give us a chance, but no one's really expecting anything. So I suppose from the neutral point of view, what do you see from this game?
Yeah, I mean, as a neutral, you know, point of view, you'd have to look at Galway as the favourites at this moment in time. Anyway, I know obviously they got beat by Monaghan, but I think there were definitely a lot of positives for Galway in the Monaghan game up until that point. Like, you could definitely see that, because Monaghan at different stages, even in the first half, were looking very, very impressive, and defensively they've definitely shown up quite a lot since the Kerry game. They've definitely improved and gotten better, and they seem to be more, just not necessarily better defensively, but definitely more structured in the way that they're set up. And even Robert Finnerty who's come in, I think he's been a good find coming into the team. And I think Shane Walsh definitely hasn't been playing at the level we know he can play. Whether it's a fear of maybe getting injured or whether he still has a nickel, I'm not sure. But we've seen even in the Monaghan game, just decision-making at different times, dropping a few chances short, maybe not playing the right pass when he needs to. So I feel like with Galway, it's just one of them things where, you know, I know Padraig Joyce is a top manager and all the rest, and the Galway fans love him, but you do wonder, do they need something else there just for them to be better coached or something like that? Because we know they have the potential to do so. But yeah, Roscommon, I suppose, are, you know, coming in obviously off the defeat to Armagh, but I think, like I was saying there the other day, you know, Galway are going to be the favourites, and I think that suits Roscommon, because Galway have only won one game since the pandemic, you know, and there's a real chance that, you know, the likes of Stephen Poacher and Anthony Cunningham will be looking at what Monaghan doing in that game, probably licking their lips. And it's actually probably, even though he's are coming in on the back of tough form, this is probably the best chance to play Galway. Like, it's probably a good you know, thing that Galway don't play a Sligo or a Leitrim to build confidence around like that. They go straight into this game, and the pressure will be on Galway. The pressure won't be on Roscommon. And, you know, maybe if Enda Smith and Connor Cox can be in their top form like they've been in the past, you know, you might just be able to do so. And if you can come through Galway, I'm sure the confidence will then be there going into a Mayo game. But right now, you just have to fancy Galway, because it's like with Roscommon, it's not just that we know they have the talent, but it also seems like the application isn't quite there. Haven't watched the Armagh game and a few of the other games, so yeah, you'd have to go with Galway at this point.
Yeah, because let's be honest, if whoever loses this game, that the management will be under pressure, and there could be calls to go. I mean, Porrick Joyce is under big pressure. There's no doubt about that. They started fantastically well, but as you said there, one win since the pandemic, unfortunately, was against Roscommon, of course. It had to be. And Anthony Cunningham's in his third year now. And as I said there is a lot of negative talk about the team at the moment. So one team got a bad loss here, maybe a convincing 5 or 6 point loss. One of the managements could be off.
Yeah, there definitely could be changes, all right. And, you know, with Anthony Cunningham, he did win a Connacht title. You'd like to think that would probably get him another year to potentially get Roscommon back into Division 1. But it is a tough one. And, you know, I was speaking to Daniel St. Ledger there recently, who's a former Carlow footballer, and he was even saying when Poacher came in, it probably took about a year or so for his ideas to really kind of come into effect, you know, with his defensive sort of system. And nonetheless, and you know, you would probably give it another year, in all honesty. But in terms of Galway, like, I mean, yeah, like if they lose this, I mean, I know a lot of people will look to that, the form and the wins over Tyrone and whatnot pre-pandemic, but you definitely have to be worried for them if they're losing this game, because going down to Division 2 and then also losing to your rivals in Roscommon, you'd probably have to look at them and think, you know, are they actually making progress under Padraig Joyce? And you can tell he's under pressure, because he didn't even speak to the media after the Monaghan game, and that shows you that he's probably feeling the pressure as well. So there's a lot on the line for both managers here.
Yeah, so I presume you're going to just side with Mayo for now anyways.
Yeah, I'll go with Mayo for the Connacht title right now anyways. Like, yeah, I know they've obviously had Killian O'Connor injured, but I think right now you'd have to fancy them to just about get the edge over Galway. But look, listen, with that injury, it could be close, and this could be one of them that potentially goes to extra time and penalties. But I suppose when we see the teams play as well, we'll probably know a bit more like how maybe Mayo are going to set up. But I think right now I definitely tip Mayo anyways.
Yeah, the other two provinces are, I mean, you'd have to think fairly straightforward, but we'll go through Munster. I mean, Kerry have Clare and Tip on their side. You know, Clare a really good year for them, and they'll probably cause Kerry a few problems in parts of the game. And like Owen Cleary and David Tupperty up front, you know, there's firepower there, but you'd have to think Kerry should have a really clear passage to the Munster final and end up winning it then.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think, you know, the only way Kerry don't win it is if they get caught like what they done last year when they played Cork, if they, I don't know, set up defensively or something silly like that. But, you know, I know with Kerry, like, we'll probably speak about it further down the line, like when they play at Dublin, maybe then you can play defensive and alter your style a little bit. But we've seen what they've done against Tyrone and Galway, like two, you know, kind of outside contenders maybe. So if they play like that against your Clare, Tipperary, and eventually probably Cork, I think they've got they should be winning this quite comfortably, you know, with the players that they have with David Clifford. And it will also be perfect as well, maybe to get the likes of Killian Spillane back into form, or try out a Tony Brosnan, and Paul Gainey's looked very bright so far. And maybe they can get David Moran back into form as well. But yeah, I think Clare would probably give them their toughest test, you know, in all honesty, with the fact that it's the first game. You know, and David Tubberty and Owen Cleary, like, you've seen the passion that they had even in the Mayo game. Like, they looked so passionate at different times. They looked really, really up for it. So I would expect Clare to kind of, you know, probably 6 or 7 points. I don't think it's going to be like 10 to 15 or anything like that. But in terms of the other games, like even the Cork game, like you'd have to imagine that Kerry were probably looking at the championship draw and saying, like, when do we play Cork? Because people are always going to go on about that marquee and go, well, Cork fans will probably, but until Kerry right that wrong, people are still going to talk about it, at least neutral fans anyway. So I think they'll definitely have their eyes set on that Munster final.
Yeah, because I mean, in problems like this, I think the only thing that can beat Kerry is probably themselves. They're by far the best team in it, and they should have no problems. I mean, the other side, you have Limerick. Limerick play Waterford, and the winners of that play Cork. I mean, Limerick have had, again, a really good year, another really good league campaign for them. And, I mean, they might fancy their chances against a Cork on a given day to cause them a few problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they've definitely shown massive progression, obviously, this year, getting to a Division 3, semi-final, losing to Derry. And I think Hugh Burke has been very impressive there, and Ian Corbett at different stages kind of from the defence getting forward. So there's a real shock there. There really, really is. That's a real banana skin game for Cork, because it's the first game for them as well. They won't have another game to get them up to speed. Limerick will have played Waterford, so that'll be a nice game for them to get up to speed and win that game and gain confidence. So yeah, there's a real shock here. And I suppose with Cork, it's one of them where they learned the lesson from when they got beat by Tipperary. You'd hope they would, and they'll have seen Limerick. And I think surely if Ronan McCarthy wants to, I think he was saying in the papers there about a year ago that he believes that Cork can challenge for an All-Ireland in the next 2 to 3 years. Well, he's got to be beating Limerick if he wants to be the man to do it, because they do have the players coming through, but Cork have to be winning that game, let's be honest. Yeah,
then Leinster, I mean, it's been the Dublin province, really. It should be just newly named as that, Dublin's Cup or whatever you want to call it. But again, like, it's hard preview a Leinster championship. Like, if you took Dublin out of it, you probably have, a competitive enough one. Kildare or Meath could probably still end up winning it, but I think it's Dublin again.
Yeah, I suppose, and unfortunately, our Stubbs have probably ruined it for everyone, unfortunately. But yeah, like, I'd love for it to be competitive this year, and hopefully, because obviously, I think I've said before, like, I remember going to Leinster finals back in 2005 and 2011 and 2009 when they actually meant something. So it would be good to get the Leinster Championship back to that state, because the worry would be with that when fans want to come back, that eventually, crowds at Leinster finals will probably start drying up. But yeah, Dublin without doubt. I mean, Kildare and Meath. I mean, Kildare have made strides this year, getting back up to Division 1, and it's a shame they don't have qualifiers, because Kildare is a team that could maybe go on a run and reach an All-Ireland quarter-final. I haven't really been impressed with Meath, in all honesty. I know they've had injuries, but when you look at the players that they have, generally, even with those injuries, like, you'd have to say they aren't really progressing at the moment. And Westmeath and maybe Longford or something like that could potentially cause a few scalps along the way. But I think, ultimately we all know the outcome, and that would be Dublin to win the Leinster Championship.
Yeah, I think the hope in Leinster now is that Meath or Kildare could be competitive for however long. I mean, I think Kildare actually, was it 2016 or something, or 2017 maybe? I think Kevin Feely had a really good game against Brian Fenton that day. I think that was the last time, and they still ended up losing by 10, I think. That was the last time I think I've seen how decent competitive performance against Dublin for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think that was either 2016 or 2017, one of them years anyways. And yeah, like, as I remember, actually, that was Dublin's real, obviously their peak form at the moment, or, in terms of what they've achieved over the past couple of years. But yeah, I remember going into that game, no one really kind of gave, everyone kind of felt to be 15 to 20 points. And actually Kildare, to be fair to them, really stepped it up. And that's kind of one thing you do have to give Kildare credit for when they do play Dublin. Like, Meath have unfortunately rolled over in many ways when they've played Dublin in the past 2 years. But Kildare generally do give it a game. And even, I think Dublin played Kildare in 2019 in the semi-finals. I think it was still 15 points or give or take. But they did give it a good game, and they gave it a right go. Like, and that's generally what Kildare have done down the years. So if they were to play at Dublin, it will be interesting to see how they do. I'm sure Jack O'Connor would have them set up like very, he's a manager who knows the stuff, obviously, from his time with Kerry. He's beaten Dublin many a times in the championship down the years. But ultimately we all know the outcome eventually, and Dublin are just too strong at the moment. And for the likes of your Kildares and your Meads, it's about building in the league next year. And hopefully if there's qualifiers next year, or whatever way they structure the championship next year, hopefully those counties can get more games and can get more progression as well.
Yes, yeah, you hit Kerry last year. I'm pretty sure. You're going to go with your own county this year?
Yeah, I'd have to go with Dublin. There's no way I can back Kerry 2 years in a row. And, it's one of them things that's funny. Like, I obviously tipped Kerry last year and they got beaten the way they did. I kind of wonder, should I tip them every year and maybe they'll get beat by Clare or something like that, but probably not. So, like I think Kerry are the closest to Dublin right now, but I just think Kerry's defence is the big issue there with, Tyg Foley or Tyg Morley and Jason Foley and a few of the other fullbacks and halfbacks in there. Like that's kind of the main weakness between the Kerry team. And you could see Con and whether it's Cormac Costello or Dean Rock just causing too many problems. And I think Kerry will probably play defensive, and they probably should do. They probably should sit back and try and make it tough and make it difficult for Dublin as much as they can. But I could see even a similar situation to the Dublin Mayo game last year, where Kerry caused problems and cause issues, and David Clifford probably has a great game, but I think ultimately, like, Kerry probably have the better forwards in terms of the full forwards and the half forwards, but Dublin overall have a very good defence, very good midfield, and they have the experience. They've done it 6 years in a row, so there's no reason why they can't make it 7 in a row.
Yeah, it's getting to that stage now where you think Dublin will just surely one day they'll have to lose eventually, but it is getting to that stage now where you're hitting 7 in a row. If they win this year, they're heading towards, I mean, they'll be having 10 in their sights. They probably won't be saying out loud or anything, but in the back of their head they'll be saying, I tell you what, 10 in a row, this will be never done again, you'd have to think.
Yeah, I think that's probably what Desi's aiming for, because Jim Gavin is heralded as probably one of the best managers ever, and he did lose a game against Donegal. So if Desi wins 5 or 6 All-Irelands in a row, and then he probably goes down as a better manager, people would have to say. So there's probably something there for Desi to aim towards, and it does sound weird because it's Dublin have won the 5 in a row already, but it could easily happen. It's not impossible. I know different people like Kieran Whelan, and I think I was listening to Pillar Caffrey there a few weeks ago, and he was even saying, like, the players are drying up and there's not enough players to coming through at the moment. But personally, I don't believe that. Like, even Sean McMahon, who's come through the Dublin team, like he was on the same under-20 team as Con O'Callaghan back in 2016. Like, these players are in development squads, and they're just there to, they're just ready to, and Kieran Archer, I'm sure in 2 or 3 years when he's ready, will eventually come into the Dublin team, and a few others. So yeah, I think Dublin aren't going to slow down. It's going to be more about can a Kerry or a Mayo, a Galway, a Tyrone catch up to them.
Brilliant, Aaron. Thanks very much for coming on, and let's hope we have a great championship ahead.
Yeah, no bother. Cheers for having me, and can't wait for it now.